Okay, so today we're going to be fixing a Campbell Hausfeld air compressor. It's an older one, I believe made in 2008. It is an oiled compressor. A lot of the newer ones are oilless, meaning they don't take any lubricating oil in the pump. They don't last nearly as long. This one came in running. The motor runs, the compressor turns, nothing's locked up. But it doesn't really build any pressure beyond, say, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 psi. It just keeps on running and running and running. I did do a basic leak check on the whole unit. Didn't see any obvious leaks that would account for that type of pressure loss. What commonly happens on these things, especially after a lot of use, this one's actually used to blow off tires and mower decks and whatnot. There's a little bit of corrosion in the tank there. I already told the owner it's time to replace this one, but he just wanted me to get it going for a little while longer. So what happens on these things sometimes is the valve plate goes. There's just 4 bolts that hold the cylinder head on, and there's not much to it. So set that aside for a minute. And you can just replace this whole head assembly here with this reed valve here, or check valve. So it comes in a kit. It's maybe $40 or so in parts. Now this one was not run with an air cleaner. The air cleaner element was empty, so I bought a new air cleaner for it. And prophylactically, I bought a piston and ring kit. So while we're this far into it, it makes sense to just pop the cylinder off, replace the rings and or the piston, just to freshen things up. That is an iron bore. It looks to be in pretty good shape. And obviously I also got the new valve plate kit in here. So you can get all this stuff online. It's pretty easy to get. Not too tough. So we'll take the cylinder off and we'll get going. Alright, so I'm just going to slowly pry up on the cylinder here to loosen it because there's a gasket there. There we go. So we broke the gasket seal. It just comes right off like that. So there's the old piston. Here's the bore. So we'll set the cylinder aside for a minute. And like I mentioned, it's in pretty good shape. There's no rings or scratches or anything of any kind, so that's definitely serviceable. And you can see the piston and connecting rod are just kind of sitting there. So I mean, we're already here. Might as well just replace the whole assembly, right? Looking for any identifying marks which indicate directionality of the piston. I don't see any. Let's see if there's any on the new connecting rod. Just gonna set the camera down to open the package here. Stapled together in 4 or 5 different locations here. Dump it out. See what we see. I'm just looking for any identifying marks on the connecting rod. Not really seeing any. Although I do see a couple of knobs there, which are thrust, probably the thrust face. There's the hole for oil to go through and lubricate the bearing. So let's just see where that is on the old one. Probably doesn't matter, but better be safe than sorry. All right, so that hole is on the inboard side down there. So we'll put it back that same way. Let's take a look at the new piston to see if there's any marks on that. I don't see any. Let's take the old one out and take a closer look at it. Hopefully this has caged needle bearings. This whole thing just won't fall apart. Yeah, nothing in there. Good. Also in pretty good shape. So again, that was the inboard side. I don't see any arrows or anything. I think we're good to go to put this in anyway. Alright, so we got a new piston pin. I like to lubricate these things a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squirt a little bit of oil on here. And there's a couple of rings here that retain that wrist pin. So basically this pin goes in there, the connecting rod goes across there, and these two pins or snap rings go on either side to keep it from moving side to side. So I'm just going to put that together and we'll pick it up. Alright, so I got that whole assembly put together here. You can see, got the pin in, got the connecting rod on. Now I'm just going to put these snap rings in there. So not too tough. You do need a set of snap ring pliers though. Just compress the ring, get it in that groove. You should hear it click into place. That one did. Do the same thing on the other side. You always want to replace these. That's in there too. Cool. Alright, so now piston rings. Let's see. Some of these are directional. Some of them have grooves, so you got to pay attention to all those things. Let's see. Do we have a... Alright, so you notice on these rings here, there's a very small little notch right there and right there. Otherwise, these two rings appear identical. So let's look at where that notch is on the old rings. That notch is facing down towards the bottom of the bore on both rings. So we just want to make sure we put them in that way. But first, we're going to put the oil control ring in. And some of these are a little tight. Just kind of got to do your best. Don't expand them too much though, because some of them do snap. Okay, so that's the oil control ring. I'm just going to make sure there's no difference between these two rings. They appear identical. Yeah, they're the same. So again, we're going to put them in with that little groove facing down towards the sump. There we go. That groove is facing down. We'll do the last piston ring. All right, good to go. So what I like to do, I like to lubricate these really well. You got to stagger the end gaps too. So you see these, there's a gap in the ring right there. You want to make sure that's opposite the gap in the next ring. Or close to it. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so that assembly is ready to go. Let's clean up the bore a little bit. Make sure there's no particles or anything in here that could cause a problem. I don't make compressors like this anymore, that's for sure. It's a pretty well-made pump. Take those old pins out. So you can see that's pretty nice in there. You also want to make sure you oil the journal down here too. That's going to be running dry for the first bit of time this thing's running. We'll shoot a little bit of oil in the crankshaft too, and the crank pin. I'm just going to clean this up with a wire wheel. I'm going to pause the camera. Okay, so I got everything reassembled. I got the piston in the bore. It's actually really easy. There's a nice taper at the bottom of the bore here that you can use to just kind of wiggle the piston back in place. So not much to it. I did scrape the old gasket off the bottom here. The kit that I bought does come with a new one. So really this just gets slipped on there like so. And remember that oil hole goes toward the inboard side right there. So we got our new gasket. We just got to slide. Let's put a little bit more oil on that. Looks like a lot of it dripped off. Can't have too much oil, right? Slip that on the connecting rod, or the crank pin rather. Just like so. There we go. That simply goes down like that. So you can see that the orientation is exactly the same. The two pinholes are over here. I did wire wheel this because to get some of the old gasket material off. So we got the new piston and rings. Now installation is just the reverse of removal. So since I didn't really show you guys that part, the kit comes with two new pins that I'll put in the grooves there. Comes with this, whoops. Of course I drop a thin piece of sheet metal on the ground. And with gloved hands, it's nice, easy to pick up. So I'll take our magnet, hopefully it's at least somewhat magnetic. It was. Got lucky on that one. This looks like stainless steel, which isn't always magnetic. Depends upon the alloy. So it just simply sits on there like so. And we need our gasket. Goes on there like so. That should pop into the pin grooves. It does. Move our gasket over like that. Got our top gasket. Not too many ways this can go back together. I do have some scraping to do here. See, there's some old gasket material here. We don't want that to be on there. Look at a good seal. So I'm just using this is aluminum, so I have to be a little careful, but this is just a razor blade. And it comes off pretty easily. It's not too bad. You do have to be careful with aluminum parts, so you don't want to gouge them. A razor blade can do some pretty serious damage. You don't want to use a wire wheel on aluminum either, especially a powered one. That'll go right into it. Alright, so that should do that. Let's blow it out with the air gun. We'll hit it with some brake cleaner just to clean up the inside because it's a little nasty. Guess it's just oil residue from over the years. Like I said, this unit was run without an air filter, so God only knows what went through it, right? All right, it's a lot cleaner. Let's blow it out again. And that simply goes on like that. Not too much to it. Put your 4 bolts back in. You know what? Let me replace this air cleaner first. It'd probably be easier to do that. Let's see if it's going to cooperate. It's obviously physically damaged. This looks like it'll be fun. I have to break it off. Looks like it's already halfway there anyway. Guess maybe now we can get a wrench in there. Let's see. Let's see if that opened things up enough. Probably not. But you never know. Nope. It's kind of a dumb design. And of course the whole assembly is rotating now. So I think we're just going to break it off. There we go. Piece of junk. Now we can stick a socket on there. Hopefully. And of course it's metric. .21 fits perfectly. So we'll clamp that gently in the vise. Stick a socket on there, ratchet, and just unturn. No thread sealant whatsoever. That's lovely. So we got our new air cleaner assembly right here. Put a little bit of thread sealant on there just to give it a prayer. This is the same stuff I use on residential plumbing projects too. I think I may have mentioned it in another video. You can pick it up at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's OD Great White pipe joint compound. That small amount will probably last you your entire life. Unless you're doing this every day. So we're just screwing the filter, new filter on. There we go. Let's just double check that we did everything correctly here. So we got our plate. We got a hair in there. Look at that. Can't have that. Got our new gasket. Got our plate there. Whoops. We got that right there. Can only go on one way because of those pins. We got our gasket right here. We got our cylinder head right there. I'm going to coat the bolts. Actually, first let me check to see if the GoPro camera locked up, which it seems to like to do lately. You guys still there? Yep, you are. Okay. If anybody else is having these problems with the GoPro cameras locking up, please let me know. I mean, it seems to be a lot of people complaining about it in the forum and not much interest from GoPro in resolving the issue. They just tell you to do a factory reset and update to the latest firmware. I'm a technology guy. I've already tried all the obvious stuff. My last GoPro did this too. I had it was a Hero 5 Session or Session something, one of those cube cameras. And this is the top of the line Euro 7 black. So I figured, you know what, maybe I just bought a cheapie and I paid the price. Buy once, cry once. So I bought the expensive one, and it's a lot better, but it's doing the same crap. Just gotta line up your bolt holes here. There we go. There we go. There we go. So I don't know exactly what the torque spec for these is, but I'm just going to kind of wing it. I believe it's a 9/16 bolt. Just going to whiz them on with the impact driver. Maybe like 10 foot-pounds or so. I know some of you are probably cringing at me using non-impact rated sockets, but we're not going too nuts here. Let's do my torque wrench on 10 foot-pounds. Maybe we'll do 15. These are pretty big bolts. I tighten them in a crisscross manner, as much as you can with 4 bolts. There we go, click. Mosquito. Okay, that should be it. Okay, I got to do some reassembly here. That's kind of boring, so I'm not going to kill you with those details, but let me hook all this back up and we'll fire it up. Alright guys, so as you can see, the compressor's running. Pretty freaking loud, but problem solved. It's now getting past the 25 psi. So that seems to have solved the problem. Want to run it to make sure it cuts out okay. A little bit of cleanup while we're at it. So that should cut out around 135 psi or so. There we go, pretty close. Looks like there's a small leak on the regulator, but I don't think we're gonna go too crazy over that. All right, so let's drain it out, and this should buy a little bit more time. Thanks for watching.